Hey, fourth grade, today we are on Module 5, Lesson 20, and we're going to be adding fractions with unlike denominators, meaning that their units are going to be different from one another. We'll be using 2 pages today, so my next 2 pages were 57 and 58. Take a moment to fill out your table of contents, and then let's get going. Our instructions say, use a tape diagram to represent each addend. An addend are what's added together in an addition sentence. Decompose one of the tape diagrams to make like units. Then write the complete number sentence. Our first number sentence says 1/3 plus 1/6. So I'm going to decompose my tape diagrams to represent 1/3 and another tape diagram to represent 1/6. How can we decompose our thirds into sixths to make like units? Since these are 2 different units, I can't add them together. I can only add and subtract fractions when the denominators are the same. So how can I change my thirds, my largest unit, and decompose them into sixths? What's the missing factor that gets us from 3 to 6? 3 times 2 equals 6. So that means for every third that I have, I'm going to double up those thirds to make sixths. That's going to change our entire fraction. We went from having 1 out of 3 shaded pieces to 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shaded pieces. 1/3 is the same as having 2 sixths. So I can rename 1/3 as 2 sixths and solve this addition sentence. 2 sixths plus 1 more sixth makes a total of 3 sixths. Let's try it again. 3/4 plus 1/8. I have different units. First, I'm going to represent my fourths. And I have 3 of them shaded in. And then I'm going to represent my eighths. And I'll shade 1 of those pieces in. I can't add these together because they're different units. We have eighths and fourths. So let's decompose our larger units, our fourths, into eighths. What do I need to multiply to get from 4 to 8? 4 times 2 equals 8. So just like in our last number, or in our last tape diagram, we're going to double up each of our fourths to make eighths. What we've done is we've changed our fraction 3/4 to a new fraction. Instead of having 3 out of 4 shaded pieces, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 8 shaded pieces. And now I can add together my like units. I'm going to rename 3/4 as 6/8 plus 1 more eighth is a total of 7/8. Let's practice it again, only this time we don't have the tape diagrams drawn for us. We'll have to make our own. It's important to remember that when you draw your tape diagrams, they have to be the same size as one another. Since they both represent one whole, even though our units will be different. Our first tape diagram will represent 1/2. And our second tape diagram will represent 1/4. How can I decompose my halves into fourths? I know that 2 times 2 equals 4, so I'm going to double up each of my halves to make fourths. I can now rename that fraction. What was once 1 out of 2 pieces is now 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Now that I have like units, they're all fourths, I can rewrite my number sentence. 2/4 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. Let's try it again, only this time we're going to use a different visual tool. Next it says draw a number line to model the addition. Then write a complete number sentence. Let's look at the first example, and then we're going to try our own. So they started with 1/3 plus 1/6. They first had a number line from 0 to 1 and broke it into thirds. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. They then decomposed that number line so that they had sixths. They decomposed each third and made sixths. They were able to realize that 2/6 was the same as 1/3. All they needed to do was add one more sixth to make 3/6. So let's try it again on our own. But this time we're going to show 5/12 plus 1/4. At the end of your number line should be 0. And at the other end should be 1 whole. First, you want to decompose it by your largest unit. And our largest unit is fourths. So let's decompose this number line into fourths. Here's halves. And here's fourths. 1/4 would be right here. Now let's decompose our fourths so that we have like units, which are twelfths. What will we need to multiply to get from 4 to 12? The missing factor to get from 4 to 12 is 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. So what we're going to do is break each of our fourths into 3 equal pieces. 6, 9, 12. I noticed that since we have twelfths, 1/4 is on the same place that would be 1/12, 2/12, 3/12. So now we're going to use this number line to solve 5/12 plus, to keep like units, instead of writing 1/4, I'm going to rename it 3/12 because that's its equivalent fraction. By using my addition skills, I know that my units will stay the same, and 5 plus 3 equals 8. To check that on the number line, I'm going to count up 5 more twelfths, which would be 5 more spaces on my number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right here. And that should be 8/12. 3/12, 4/12, 5/12, 6/12, 7/12, 8/12. So for this last one, let's solve it without a model, which means that we're not going to use a tape diagram. We're not going to use a number line. We're only going to use what we know about factors to help us solve. 3/4 plus 5/8 is our last problem, and we don't have like units. We want to change it so that we have the same units and we can add it across. I want to decompose my larger unit, which is fourths, which means I want to change my larger unit. The first thing I need to ask myself is, what is the lowest common denominator that these two numbers have? Meaning, what's the multiple that if I skip count by 4s and I skip count by 8s, it's the lowest one that they have in common? Well, let's start with 8s and see if I skip count by 8s, what's the closest I can get to, or what's the lowest number that will also be skip counted by 4s. All right, if I skip count by 8s, that's 8, 16, 24. Let's just start with 8. 8. 8 times 1 equals 8. Okay, 8's a multiple of 8. Is 8 also a multiple of 4? It is. So that means I can change my fourths into eighths. What's that missing factor going to be? What do I have to multiply by 4 to make 8? 2. Whatever I do to my numerator, I'll do to my denominator as well. So I'll also multiply my top number. 3 times 2 equals 6. So my new fraction is 6/8. Let's add that to our 5/8. 6/8 plus 5/8 equals, we'll keep the same unit of eighths, we just need to add 6 plus 5. 6 plus 5 equals 11. Oh dear, this is so improper. When you have a fraction where your top number is larger than your bottom number, we call that an improper fraction. So 4th grade, let's change our improper fraction into a mixed unit. To do that, let's pull out one whole group. 11/8, pulling out one whole group would be 8/8. 11/8, take away 8/8 is 3/8. As a mixed number, we would represent this as one whole with 3 additional eighths. So now it's your turn. Move on to your problem set, and good luck today.